The stage lights glowed warm and gold across the set of The View, bouncing off glass tables and pastel coffee mugs. The audience buzzed with anticipation, some clutching small signs that read, "We love Blake." Others whispering about how surreal it was to see the country legend up close. Cameras panned across the crowd as producers moved like shadows in the background, whispering into headsets, signaling to each host. Backstage, Blake Shelton adjusted the cuff of his denim shirt, exhaling slowly. He wasn't nervous. He'd been on television more times than he could count, but there was a part of him that hated the feeling of being fenced in by flashing lights and hot microphones. 3 minutes to air, a voice said in his earpiece. Blake gave a half smile, running a hand through his familiar sandy hair. "Let's make it quick," he muttered to himself. He'd been on a week-long press run for his new album Backroads and Beer Cans, hopping from one city to the next. The Today Show had gone smoothly. Late Night with Fallon was a blast. But The View, well, that was a different animal. He'd been warned, Joy Behar likes to poke. He didn't take it too seriously at the time, but the words came back to him now, right as a stagehand gave the cue. "Ladies and gentlemen," the producer's voice echoed, "please welcome Blake Shelton." The audience erupted in cheers. Blake stepped out with his easygoing swagger, guitar in hand, that lopsided grin lighting up the room. The band played a snippet of God's Country as he waved to the crowd. He set his guitar aside and shook hands with Whoopi, Sonny, Sarah, and finally, Joy Behar, who greeted him with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good to have you here, Blake," Whoopi said as the applause died down. "Thanks for having me," he said, taking a seat. "It's a little early for me, but I'll survive." The crowd laughed. The first few minutes went smooth. Blake cracked jokes about early mornings, talked about his love for the fans, and shared stories about writing his new record during quiet nights in Oklahoma. His southern charm was on full display, and even Sonny found herself smiling at his dry humor. Then Joy leaned forward, shuffling her cue cards. "So, Blake," she began, voice measured but sharp, "I've listened to your new album. It's catchy, fun, but I have to ask, you ever think country music is just ignoring reality?" Blake's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Ignoring reality?" he repeated, a bit amused. Joy tilted her head. "You know what I mean. Your songs are all about beer cans, back roads, and falling in love under the stars. But there's a lot going on out there. Politics, social issues, people struggling. Don't you think you, as someone with a huge platform, could use your music to say something a little more meaningful?" The audience shifted uneasily. Whoopi gave a half laugh, trying to diffuse the tension. "Here we go," she muttered under her breath, just loud enough for her mic to pick it up. Blake smiled politely, leaning back in his chair. "Well, Joy, I write about what I know. I grew up in a small town. My songs come from real people's lives, folks who get up, go to work, take care of their kids, and don't have time to argue on the internet all day." There was polite laughter from the crowd, but Joy wasn't smiling. "Sure," she said, "but don't you think it's a little easy? You get to stay comfortable while the world's out there changing. It's almost like country music doesn't want to face that change." Blake tilted his head, his smile fading just a bit. "Well, ma'am, I think people get enough change from the news every day. When they turn on my songs, they're not looking for more bad news. They're looking for something that reminds them life's still good." Joy smirked. "That's a nice thought, but isn't that just escapism?" the audience murmured. Blake blinked slowly, as if processing the word like it had an odd taste. "Escapism," he repeated. "Well, Joy, I reckon we all need a little bit of that sometimes. Some folks go to movies, some watch talk shows, and some put on a country song and forget their troubles for 3 minutes. That ain't a crime." Whoopi covered her face, suppressing a grin, sensing this was turning into something combustible. Joy's tone hardened. "So you think artists don't have any responsibility to comment on what's happening in the world?" Blake chuckled softly, but his voice lost the playful edge. "I think our responsibility is to be honest. I don't write speeches. I write songs. That's my lane. People who come to my shows, they don't want to be told how to think. They just want to feel something real." The crowd applauded, louder this time. Joy crossed her arms, trying to keep her composure. I just think it's easy to sing about beer when other people are fighting for rights you already have. That was the moment the room went still. Blake leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. The studio lights reflected in his eyes, calm but cutting. You ever been to Ada, Oklahoma, Joy? He asked quietly. When the red on-air light flickered back to life, the studio audience leaned forward in their seats like spectators at a prize fight. The short commercial break hadn't done much to cool the air between Blake Shelton and Joy Behar. You could feel it, that strange electricity that builds when two people are smiling but no longer pretending. Welcome back to The View, Whoopi announced, her voice carrying that mix of authority and amusement she used when wrangling chaos. We're here with country superstar Blake Shelton, talking about his new album Backroads and Beer Cans, and, well, she glanced between them, a few other things too. Apparently, the audience chuckled nervously. Blake gave a slow, easy grin. He leaned back in his chair, arms folded, looking perfectly at home, the calm in a brewing storm. That's what happens when you invite a country boy to a talk show, Whoopi, he said, earning laughter from the crowd. We just end up talking plain. Joy forced a smile. Oh, I think you're doing more than just talking plain, she said, flipping through her cards. You've got opinions, strong ones. I respect that. Good, Blake said simply, 'cause I ain't got time to fake 'em. The audience erupted again, clapping and hooting. Sonny Hostin and Sarah Haynes exchanged glances that were half amused, half alarmed. Whoopi just sighed and shook her head, muttering something like, "Here we go again." Joy leaned forward, her tone sharpening. So let me ask you this, Blake. You say your music represents the real people of America. But don't you think some of those real people might actually want to hear artists talk about deeper issues? I mean, do you ever think you might be underestimating your audience? Blake raised an eyebrow. Underestimating them? I think you're doing that for me. A low rumble of laughter swept the audience. I know my fans, he continued. They're not looking to be lectured by singers, politicians, or talk show hosts. They already know life's hard. They live it. What they want is a reason to keep going. That's what country music's about. Joy chuckled dryly. So you don't see any value in using your platform to challenge people? To make them think? Blake gave her a slow look. You really think folks need me to make them think? Joy, people out there are thinking all the time about how they're going to pay their bills, keep their jobs, raise their kids. Maybe it's time we give them a break from thinking about what's wrong and let them remember what's right. Whoopi leaned back in her chair, murmuring, He's got a point. Joy's jaw tightened. I just think that attitude is part of the problem. People tuning out, ignoring what's really going on. Hold up, Blake interrupted, his voice calm but firm. Ain't nobody ignoring anything. Just 'cause they don't post about it or talk about it on shows like this, don't mean they don't care. It just means they deal with it their own way. The room was quiet for a beat. You could hear the faint hum of the studio lights. Then Joy spoke again, softly but with a sharp edge. I think sometimes entertainers hide behind that, pretending to be just normal folks to avoid taking a stand. Blah wildly behind the cameras, trying to bring things under control. Joy's face had gone stiff. You don't need to lecture me about real people, Blake. I've been around long enough to know what struggle looks like. He gave a small, humorless laugh. Then maybe quit making fun of it every chance you get. The crowd roared again, louder this time. Whoopi leaned toward the camera, shouting over the noise. Okay, we're going to take another break before Blake drops his next single right here on this table.